All right. So, man, this is so fun for me. I love just getting up in my studio and just working through some of these sounds and ideas. Someone mentioned in a recent video something about, he called it core tone. And I thought that was a cool idea. But, like how do you approach getting your kind of basic sound? And, one thought I have about this is that, you know, you can be easily be fooled, and we all have, when you look online and you see like, man, oh look at this huge pedal board, look at this big rig, and all this stuff, and like I just want to like sometimes take, especially someone who maybe isn't as familiar with like big pedal boards and all this stuff. I kind of just want to like take, like black tape or something and go, well, hold on, let me show you what's actually going on the pedal board, and I'll just like cover up, you know, like eight of the pedals and be like, this is really, at least for me in my experience. Now, if you're really dialing in a lot of crazy sounds live, maybe you need all that, and that's cool. I love. There's plenty of bands I love that have and guitar players I love that use a lot of different pedals. But like, if you could look at my pedal board, and you might see like nine pedals. I've scaled back. I've once had a bunch more than that, and a lot of guys do, and they get lots of great sounds. But what I'm saying is, really what you're seeing is, or what you're really hearing is guitar, amp, and how the amp reacts usually for me with one pedal, maybe two pedals. And what I mean by that is like I will typically dial up my amp to have like a really good sound with just the guitar plugged straight in. That's always where I start. I start straight into the amp, and I just start kind of making sure that the guitar has enough top end. You don't want it to be so bright that it hurts your ears, and you don't want it to be so low end and muddy that you can't hear it in the mix with the band. And so it's about finding that spot where the amp sounds nice and fat, but you still get this nice, mid kind of honky mid range where the guitar can poke through the mix, and that's something that you develop over time with your ear, and that's something I'm still kind of working on. Is just trying to figure out, man, how can I get this guitar to sit right where I want it to with the band and with the mix. So what I always start with, a telly is a good example because there's it's so simple. There's nothing to it. Someone asked me about this guitar. This is a '74. It's the first telly I ever bought. I got it at a Guitar Center used in Austin, Texas, a long time ago, and about 2004, I think. And I had a Les Paul for about 4 years of touring before that, and this was my first telly. And this is back when you could get used vintage Fenders for not that much. I think it was 1,500 then. It's a '74, all original, and I don't know what the pickups are. I think someone asked me about that, and I'd love to know too. I think it's just whatever they made then. They're they can be noisy. They're a little bright sometimes, so I kind of have to dial up this guitar specifically a little differently than I would dial up, say, a Les Paul, or like my Fano is kind of a dark guitar because it has those P90s in it. So, what I'm saying is when you're dialing up the amp, it might be guitar specific. And if you have to use multiple guitars throughout the night, I would set it to where it's like, okay, this might be a little bright for the telly, but I have to set it a little bright or else the Fano is going to be too dark. You know what I'm saying? Like find a happy medium. But if it's just one guitar that you're using, get that one sound, nail that one sound. And for me, that's this guitar through a matchless right now today, and using some kind of mid forward overdrive. So that's a full drive for me. A lot of times, full drive too. I've toured with that for ages, so that's kind of really been a steady thing for me. A tube screamer was my first ever pedal. That's really comfortable territory for me. And so it's kind of like finding the amp the way that this guitar, or any guitar, but like a good, solid, easy, bare bones guitar through a basic, tube screamer, full drive. You can get a full drive now, I think, for $100 used, or there's tons of companies out there making great overdrive pedals. And I like kind of a mid forward, mid hump, tube screamer kind of pedal. At least one of those on my board. And then I've got some boost and stuff too. But the way I kind of approach it is I like to have my my telly to where it's not too bright, and sometimes I'll even roll off the tone here. I'll start with it wide open and I'll start dialing in the amp. Now the way I like to run, like for example, the Matchless has a place where you can click the tone. So I like to run it where it's kind of a little bit bassy for the telly anyway, and then I start clicking to see if it's too, if it doesn't seem to react well and I can't hear it in the mix, I might click off a few clicks. I think I leave it one click back for the telly typically. So if this is full bass frequency, I think I do that one. And so maybe I'll try to snap a picture of that and show you. But that's my kind of AC or my DC30, HC30, SC30, C30 series matchless sound is that one for the telly. And then I just start running the volume until it feels nice and big and just barely breaks up a little. I don't like it to break up too much live before I hit my pedals. So that would sound, like this. It's just like a basic. You hear that if I open up the amp. So, that's that. And so the theory kind of behind this for me is I like to be able to clean it up, get a nice clean sound that I can manipulate with my delays and reverbs. And then I like to hit it with an overdrive pedal. And I think to me, one kind of cheat for this is to run back to your amp with the pedal already on. So like, let's use the full drive, for example. Now, the full drive, if I know I'm going to use that all night, what I might do is turn it on, then walk back to the amp and start playing with the amp settings while the pedal is already on. So try that and see if that helps you, as opposed to coming back to your board and then trying to dial the overdrive. I do it both ways. I've gotten to where I kind of know my gear live in a live setting, that I know where I like to put my stuff. So I'll just kind of like set it where I know it's going to sound good. And then if it doesn't sound right, I go back to the amp and start messing around with it. But I always, I would start with the amp, just the guitar into the amp, and get a good clean sound that you like, that sounds nice and fat, but has this kind of sparkly top end. Then I would add in the overdrive pedal, and then go back and maybe do your fine tweaks if it sounds too bright or too muddy or something. So like for example, the full drive or the tube screamer, I like a pedal that doesn't have too much stuff going on. So this idea of a core tone is, I'm kind of getting back to that, got sidetracked, but the idea of this core tone idea is really, really smart. And I think, one thing you could do with this is just maybe scale back, try to get like your sound with just an overdrive, maybe a delay and a reverb. Those would be my three kind of components. You don't have to have 5 overdrives and a compressor and a boost pedal and a tremolo and a chorus and a vibrato and 2-3 delays and 2 reverbs. You don't have to have all that stuff. I've played plenty of nights where I basically just play one overdrive pedal, a delay, maybe I'll stack a second delay and a reverb, and that's my whole sound all night. It's like 4 pedals. And if you looked at a big pedal board of mine, you might be like, oh man, I have to have all these pedals to get a certain sound. And it's like, well, I'm really only using 3 or 4 pedals. So I hope that's encouraging to you. You don't, when you see all these big pedal boards, maybe just like think about, what are they actually using? Like, it's cool to have all that stuff. And I like having a vibrato pedal and a chorus pedal, tremolo and octave and all this. These are toys, or tools, I should say, not toys. Yeah, they're toys too. But tools of the trade, right? You need these to get your sounds. But just a thought, just today while I was thinking about it, somebody mentioned the core tone thing, and I was like, man, for me, I like to keep it really simple, Make sure your amp sounds good. Plug in an overdrive pedal. Make sure that's feeling good. And then one trick, and I'll do another video on this, is I use a volume pedal to get multiple gain stages out of one pedal. So I could use one pedal all night and then clean up with my volume pedal. And I'll show you how to do that on another video, because I want to keep this relatively short. But basically, the idea with this is there's your kind of basic sound, and then I would throw in like a tube screamer. And if that's too dark, I roll the tone back in, full drive. I like to have this, the tone on this has to be cranked pretty high. It looks weird. And then I'll inch it back. So I would kind of start there, That would be kind of like, okay, there's my basic sound. Make sure I can, make sure I got enough. I would listen to make sure I can hear my top end if I need to do something, real specific, or like a little line that has like a, if I got to play something kind of like that, I want to hear enough sparkle. But if I need to dig in, I want to know that it can go there, So that's kind of like why I like to use that kind of pedal. I would call that like a core tone. That's kind of my bass line. And once again, that's just a real quick, I didn't spend much time dialing that up. That's just an overdrive into an amp that I can trust, that I know sounds good. So there's an idea for a core tone. Man, thanks so much for the comments and everything. I'm trying to, keep answering these questions and throwing these videos up. I hope it's helpful to you. I really like doing it, and it's fun for me to get up in my studio space and be creative and try to get some sounds. And we're all trying to figure this out together, because I come up here to create all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. Let's try a different pedal. Let's try running this thing through this thing. And so yeah, maybe try scale back. Try 3 pedals and see if you can get a sound you're really happy with. For me, that's been revolutionary over the years. I'll just like get frustrated on tour, and I'll tear my pedal board apart, and I'll go, tonight I'm using 4 pedals, and suddenly I'll be back to a happy place. So it's good to kind of unpack and like go back to the start and rebuild your tone. So hey, I hope that helps. We'll see you soon.